everybody, Edo here, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different and review The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Different because I typically review board games, but I've been posting on social media and the like that I've been playing it, and a lot of people have been asking for my thoughts in a review, so I figured I'd do it. I wanted to wait, though, until I had played enough to, have an opinion and really be able to talk about the game, and over 175 hours later, I think I've played enough. Completed it, all memories, every quest, 120 shrines, I don't know, like coming to 200 Koroks. So, played a lot of this game. Emily and I have played it. We're playing one account together, and then my kids have been playing it on their own accounts, easily well over 200. So, clock the hours to have an opinion here. And so, I think for a lot of people, it comes down to, one, if you don't have a Wii U, I mean, I have a Wii U, but if you don't, whether or not this game warrants buying a Switch, how much fun it is, if it's fantastic. So, game is outstanding, absolutely warrants a Switch if you're going to play it. I mean, for me, right, if you look at 200 hours between everyone playing on it or more, right, or however many it's going to end at, let's say, bought the Switch and the stuff, let's say it was $500, $250 an hour, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that in terms of my entertainment. But on the other side, there's nothing on the Switch. Like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe just came out, and that's fun. I had the Wii version, and it's good, but I haven't had a console for so long where you're like, wow, there's so little here. We got Bomberman and the other games, and, Snipper Clips is cool, right? But this is the meat. But you can get a lot of play out of this. So, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is outstanding. It is a fantastic game. In particular, the thing I like most about this game is it is so much fun to just run around and do stuff. The act of movement and motion and play and using your paraglider and shooting your arrows and physics and everything in the environment. The puzzles are great. Moving around, attacking and fighting is fun. But it's really just that pure joy of exploration, discovery, both strengthening your power and getting stronger as a player, but then using that to get further and just becoming an expert at play and discovering the world and traveling around. I mean, unmatched. Unmatched in Zelda, unmatched in any other game I've played to this extent. I mean, again, there's some open world games that do it and have fantastic open worlds, but the sense of motion through that world and fun and discovery and play through that world, that platformer play through that world, nothing comes close. Nothing comes close. I think it is fantastic. And again, I'm a Nintendo fanboy. I mean, played just about every one of these except maybe a couple of the handheld game versions. Emily's played them all, actually. But so that part of it for me is fantastic. The puzzles, they open up Zelda and the all the sort of sacred things, and they change it around, but it feels exactly like you'd want it to feel for a Zelda game. It works, and it also has one of the there's an island that you go to that's a shrine effectively, where, and I don't really want to spoil anything, but they basically, you get there late in the game and then they're like, hey, we're going to take everything away from you and just try to play with all the skills you've built. And it is such an amazing sense of accomplishment and reward and moment in gaming of not only the things that you've acquired in terms of items and stuff, but really the skills you've developed and the know-how of the game. That, to me, was just amazing. So, it's not my favorite Zelda game. Not my favorite Zelda game. I think that while everything I just said is true, pretty weak on the narrative and the story. I mean, look, if you're going to tell the entire story through memories and 100-year past story, you're sort of limiting yourself from the get-go. But and look, what they have in there is fantastic. It just doesn't. The narrative in Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and almost any Zelda, like the narrative is slightly better than the original. And while that's better than, that's pretty, whatever, that's cool, Zelda's actually stepped up in a lot of these categories and making an interesting and engaging story that you're playing through, even with some nice moments and things and interesting characters. It is super weak in this, and in particular where you're like, the whole world. I mean, if they've been waiting for 100 years, what's 101 years? What's 102 years? And by not having any sort of narrative structure, requirements to go in any opportunity, you're really, it feels piecemeal, and you take it on your time, and you get there eventually. In fact, the character that gets the most character development in a way is Zelda in this game, which is cool, but still very weak. And that lack of urgency in the story and what's going on. I mean, people want stuff, but it doesn't. They could have woven more in. They could have put more gates. They clearly show they can do it, and I cannot wait for the sequel, next one, the game that builds on this engine and delivers the story, because it'll be amazing. In this one, it just doesn't, and you don't really recognize it until you get to the end, and you're like, sort of feels hollow. It's a wonderful hollow tree. It is a redwood, life-bringing, amazing hollow tree, but it does feel, and your Link's always hollow, but it just felt more so, and that isn't to say the characters weren't interesting. That isn't to say the storytelling wasn't cool. That isn't to say it didn't have moments. It just doesn't deliver for me in the way the previous ones had, right? The other interesting thing is the side quests and stuff are there, but there's so much world and everything's so particular. They're fun and interesting. I mean, again, every quest, but either Emily and I are completed or completed again, but all of them are done. And really, the only that carries a lot of what I come to enjoy and love about Zelda games is sort of the Terrytown quest line and your home quest line, which is really this sort of end game, completionist thing. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it's really sort of out there. And that's the only place, really, you have a sense of characters and characters from the world and interacting. They tried in other places, but make a game with a lot of that stuff. That was awesome. And it was a grindy thing. Like, from a gameplay perspective, it was the weakest, or a weak thing. But at least at the end, there was some climax and moments and story and things that were happening and people who were waiting. And, there was some dynamic drama in there. Not even that much, but it sort of cast a shadow on the rest of the game and the narrative, and it should some end game side quest shouldn't do that, right? That was a long ramble. The other thing was, they cool stuff, and sure, your weapons break all the time, and that's a pain. You get used to it and you appreciate it, but it's still a pain. One of the most frustrating things about this game is, you have this limited inventory, fine. You open it up with Korok, fine. But holy moly, how many times do I have to open a chest for them to be like, you don't have room in your inventory? Man, if there was a thing they could have made smoother and perhaps given you an option of something to drop, but to kick a chest, not be able to open it, go into your stuff, drop something, open the that is the lamest anti-Zelda experience ever. It is terrible. And it happens a lot, but not, that's a minor. You're in the edges. You got to cook and make a lot of food, and that's cool. But man, a lot of cooking. It's a fun mini game. A lot of cooking, a lot of items. I think the other piece for me was, I feel like I get the heat and weather, temperature, time of day, which is weaker, but the weather and temperature is really a big deal. Elemental pieces, ice, electricity, fire, all super really well woven in with the different relics used or runes used for stopping time, or magnesium or whatever it's called, and all of those pieces expertly Zelda built, but aren't really throwbacks to original items and things you had in previous games, and that's fine. They've broken away from using the classics. Would have enjoyed some more classics. In particular, I find the boomerang Boomerang has evolved a lot more than it has in this one, and it's really just sort of a game, whatever. But for everything amazing they did, I cannot wait again for when they bring back the hook shot and a boomerang that feels like a boomerang, and just all of those pieces that are so big and cool from the original that we're sort of missing here. Horse riding's fantastic. I didn't mind stamina. Some people would, but I love how powerful you feel, and the combat really worked for me. That the cycle of not being able to handle a guardian to the point where you're farming guardians and you're beating them left and right is super cool. In a nutshell, 175, 200 hours. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Enjoy it. Just like tooling around and running around because I can. It's so much fun. It captured my attention and still captures my attention, and I what an amazing opportunity to play this game, and I do think it's worth the price of admission. And I was looking at a stat. They've sold 2.74 million Switches, and 2.76 million Zeldas. So everyone's getting one of these when you get a Switch. Switch is cool too. I love the device. It works. The pick it up and go and play is awesome. When you dock it, it turns on your TV and sets it to the right video? What type of magic is that? It is so amazing. That needs to happen more. That is so cool. So, but having said all that, it's hard to call this like a beta or a proto or like but this was clearly like this is just the opening to an even more fantastic game, whether it's in a year or kill me 5, 10, 20. But anyway, certainly worth checking out. And I hope you enjoyed this sort of lengthy Zelda review from a guy that does a bunch of board game reviews. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.